Hi, I'm Professor Green, and this is Chapter 7, Section 2. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I am looking forward to working through this section with you. You might hear my husband in the background cooking, but let's go ahead and see if we can get through it without being interrupted. So, team dynamics, right? My husband and I are in a team, right? When we talk about parenting. The objectives for this section are how to recognize and manage team dynamics, understanding the importance of role and role dynamics, right? Very much important when we talk about parenting and being in a relationship, in a marriage. Identify and influence team norms and recognizing and managing team dynamics. So, again, just like throughout this course, there are so many places where we can apply these things, not only to the workplace, but also to our home life. So, what are roles and team dynamics? Roles are expectations associated with the job or position on a team. And so, here's some certain descriptions of certain roles, like a champion, a creator, a facilitator, an implementer, right? And so, when we have these roles, it helps us to say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm going to move forward and hopefully stay in my swim lane, which is the most efficient. If I'm a champion and I start creating, sometimes I'll lean over that line, but it's really important to leave the creating to the creator so that you're most efficient as a champion. Um, Let me just checking my notes here. Okay, I think I got everything on that one. So, role ambiguity. So, when people are uncertain about their roles or jobs on a team, and this can really, let's just say, plain and simple, mess things up, right? It creates problems where team members waste their energy on unproductive tasks or spin their wheels because they're not sure how to perform. And as I said, they're leaning over out of their swim lane. It's also one of the biggest challenges facing new people starting new jobs because they don't know exactly what they're supposed to do. They're trying to help these people, help those people. Maybe their boss hasn't told them exactly what to do. So I think for many of us, when we start a new job, it takes a couple of months to really figure out what exactly our value is, what exactly our role is. So new hires can get up to speed by asking questions of existing team members. And so I always highly recommend for a new job, go into the office, don't work remotely if possible. If you have to work remotely, set up Zoom sessions, go to happy hours, take advantage of any and all social events to connect with people and understand more about your role. So if there's a role conflict, this happens more often than you think it is. So people are unable to meet the expectations of others. There's an intra-sender role conflict when the same person sends some conflicting expectations. So your manager says one day, hurry up, and the next day your manager says slow down, right? Because probably potentially they're getting different messages from their manager. Um, there is a intersender role, of course, when different people send conflicting and mutually exclusive expectations. And I see this often when we work in a matrix organization. So you have different people helping you for a project, and one person, the marketing person says, I need this, and then the finance person says this. So all of a sudden you're getting pulled in lots of different directions. Also, a manager might say, like, your boss might say, oh, you're being too nice, but your subordinates are saying to you, you're being too demanding. You're the same person, and you seem to somehow have a conflict of roles. There's also a person role conflict when a person's values or needs come into conflict with role expectations. And we see this a lot in ethics, right? The company says, oh, don't worry about it. Let's just kind of brush that underneath the rug. And you're like, oh, wait a second. I don't know if that's really the best thing that we should be doing. An inter-role conflict. This is showing up more and more when two or more roles are held by the same individual. This shows up right in work and family demands. And we see this a lot nowadays, especially during the pandemic and especially now as more women enter the workplace. So role overload, I think at least I have been in this many times, as well as role underload. I've been in that position as well. So role overload when the role is just so daunting and people feel overwhelmed. And this is sometimes when we take on more than we can chew. Sometimes when we start a new job, we're so enthusiastic and we say yes to everything, but then it becomes too much. And then we have role underload. So when too little is expected and we feel underutilized, and that's not a good feeling either. As I've mentioned, I think once before, that happened to me at Citibank when I got hired for this very prestigious management associate program. But then we get there, and all of a sudden, our managers don't know what to do with us. And so for 6 months, I was like going to long lunches, hanging out with a colleague who also had this issue. We were in the same group. And it was stressful because we were like, wait, we just beat out hundreds of applicants for this role. We're excited to be here. And now they don't really have anything to do with us. It was more because my manager was not really the best of all managers, as I learned later. But at the time, I wasn't really quite sure where and why that was happening. It can create perceptions of inequity when people have too much to do or when others have too little. Role negotiation. So it involves team members meeting to discuss, clarify, and agree on the role expectations. So role negotiation might begin with one member writing down a request for another. It could really help if you would help. It really, if you could do these things, it would really help me a lot in being able to contribute to the team. And so sometimes that's hard. And we, because there might be a role conflict. You think that you're not responsible for something and your colleague thinks that you are. So you need to negotiate as to who is supposed to be doing that type of work. I think that sometimes like event planning shows up in that space, who's going to take care of the event because it's not necessarily always in someone's job description. What are norms? The rules and standards of team conduct help get members guide their own behavior and predict what others will do. And when a team norm is violated, other members typically respond in ways that are aimed at enforcing the norm and bringing behavior back into alignment. So if you all show up for work and you agree to have a scrum meeting at 8:30 and then someone starts showing up late on a regular basis, people get resentful and you're like, where is that guy? And you try to bring him back. Different things like this. Or if you decide on that, okay, we're going to use Slack or WhatsApp. And then someone decides that they don't want to use that anymore. That's hard. And so you try and get them to connect again with that norm. So what are some types of team norms? There's 6 here on the next slide. The most common are performance norms. So as I said, they can have positive or negative implications. So the positive thing is that we always try and our best to meet our goals, but the negative is don't stress about doing more than what's needed. That's not really good either, right? Ethics norm, right? We try and make ethical decisions, actually. Don't worry about inflating your expense account. That's totally cool. Organizational and personal pride norm. It's a tradition around here for people to stand up for the company and, be loyal to the company. Actually, we're just trying to take advantage of working here. High achievement norm. Our group always wants to win, as opposed to no one really cares about this team. Support and helpfulness norm. People are really supportive, as opposed to it's a dog-eat-dog world. I was just speaking to someone that typically in business school, or at least the business schools that I've engaged with, where I went and here in LMU, I feel that people are quite supportive and helpful. But I've heard that in film school, it's not that way because the jobs just can be so few and far between. So it can be much more competitive. Also, improvement and change norm. So our department is always trying to look for ways for doing things better. But on the negative side, people hang on to their old ways even after they've outlived their usefulness. So lots of different ways that we can see norms showing up. And so how to influence team norms, because again, as a manager, you want to have more positive ones than negative ones. Holding regular meetings to discuss team performance and how to improve it. I like this, select quality people, provide team members with support, give positive reinforcement for doing things right, and then review progress and make constructive adjustments. So sounds very logical, but really good to be reminded as to how that comes together. What are some important team dynamics? Social facilitation, to be influenced by the presence of others in a group. I thought this was a super interesting slide, or social loafing, right? So social facilitation is like that group exercise class. I had a roommate in college. She says, I go to the gym, but only when I can go to a class because I'm not very motivated to get on the treadmill or on the elliptical by myself. And that really stood out for me. But in the sense also people can hide in groups. So there has to be a balance. Social loafing occurs when people work less hard in a group than they would individually, because their contributions are less noticeable. It's easy to let others carry the load. And then I have your note, small groups, and make expectations clear. Oh, yeah. So in order to avoid that social loafing, see if you can make the group smaller and make the expectations of the group very small. So right, we want to make sure that people are encouraged by their group members and not being able to hide with their work. So inter-team dynamics is the next slide. How to achieve more positive team outcomes from inter-team dynamics. They can refocus on a common enemy or common goal, right? A little bit of healthy competition. Direct negotiations can be held among the teams. Positive interactions can help members of different teams learn how to work more cooperatively. And reward systems can be refocused on to emphasize how teams can help one another to contribute to the overall organizational performance. And so this summer, I had my international business students, my MGEM students, present their final presentations on the same day as the entrepreneurship students, so the master's in entrepreneurship. And I was a little bit of, competitive, and I was kind of like happy to bring all of my student groups together for that. I said, you guys all do great because we're going to, outshine the other masters. And that really, I think, helped motivate people. Also, there are lots of us in the management department. Sometimes we have a healthy competition with the marketing department. Or if when you get into the workplace, you'll have like a finance group working with a marketing group. And so these two different teams need to work together. And so if there's an issue, then these are some healthy ways to make them work together more simply and more easily. So communication challenges. Every team member needs to be strong and capable. But effective teams must also address questions like, what communication platforms do we use, right? Are you going to use WhatsApp? Are you going to use Slack, et cetera? Making sure everybody's on the same communication platform. Is our team making good use of available communication technologies? So just today, I got an email saying, oh, for the other mothers in my son's pre-K class, would you all like to join a WhatsApp group? Wouldn't that be a great way to communicate? So in the workplace, sometimes we put up a lot of, the open space plan, or when you have a conference room, you have walls made of glass so everyone kind of knows what's happening behind those closed doors. So yeah, really encouraging ways to be more communicative. And that ends section 2 of chapter 7. I look forward to seeing you in section 3.